Hi, this is Jamey from Stonemeyer Games, and I am here today to talk about my favorite game mechanism in the game. I was going through my list of games that I haven't talked about on this channel, and I realized that the game was on my list, which is weird because I play the game a lot. It hits the table a lot, and I really enjoy it. And I think I was struggling to figure out what my favorite mechanism was about it, because the mechanisms of the game are so simple. Basically, you're dealt a random hand of cards, and the object of the game, it's a cooperative game, is that you and the other players are trying to A, get rid of the cards that you have in hand, and B, exhaust the entire card deck. So you're trying to play all of the cards, basically. And to play a card, there are 4 stacks of cards, 2 of which start at the number 1 and go up to 100, and 2 start at 100 and go down. And all you have to do on those stacks is place a number that is, like if on the 1 stack, you have to place a number that is higher than 1, or higher than the next card that's there. So if there's a 5 on top of that stack, you have to place a 6 or higher. And the same for 100 going down. With the one exception being that on the stack, or either way, but I'll give an example. On the stack that goes up, so from 1 to 100, if the card on top of the pile is, say, 18, if I have the card that has a 10-point differential between 18 and going down, so if I have the 8, I can play that card. So it's a reason to break the rules of the game to bring me back closer to 1, to allow everybody to play more cards on that stack. And the reason I haven't talked about this game, I think, is because those mechanics are so simple. That's the whole game. That's all you do. I guess there's one, like at the end of every turn, you have to draw cards back up to your full hand, so you fill up your hand. And on your turn, you always have to play 2 cards unless the deck is empty, and then you only have to play 1 card on your turn. You can play more if you want. But like I said, it's very simple rules, so it's been hard to identify like a specific mechanism. But actually today when I was thinking about it, I came up with 2. One is that in games, it's almost always a bad idea to have an exception to a rule. And as you heard me describe in that recap, in that rules summary, there is a big and very important exception to the rule in this game, which is the 10-point differential. And it's even a little hard to explain, but it's so core to the game, and it's only one exception that it works. And so that's a good takeaway for me for this game, because usually when I'm writing my rule books, I literally do like a find, I do a search through the rule book for the word except or exception, and if I find it, then I change the rules so it's not an exception, because it's pretty much always a bad idea to rely on players to remember an exception to a rule. But the game, it's so core to the game, and it's just one rule out of the 3 other rules in the entire game that it works. It doesn't really feel like an exception, even though it is. The other thing that I love about the game, so the first few times I was playing this game, I wondered why they hadn't made it a competitive game, because in my mind I thought it would work fine as a competitive game. You're drawing random cards and you're trying to get rid of them. And maybe and there's tension in the game and trying to like get rid of your cards before other players do that. But I've realized in the probably at least a dozen times that I've played it since then, maybe 2 dozen, that it probably wouldn't work as a competitive game, because you'd be trying to screw over other players, and it would probably be really frustrating. And the key, I think, is that it's a random card draw. There are cards in the deck numbered from 2 to 99, one of each. And based on your hand, you could just get completely screwed over by what's in your hand, not to mention what the other players do. But in a cooperative game, you're all in it together. And in the game, you can't tell players directly what's in your hand. You can maybe say, hey, I really want to play on that stack. I hope no one plays there. But you can't really do anything to prevent another player from doing that. And I think it works. So this is about randomness, basically. I like that cooperative games, in particular the game, allows for a lot of randomness that players would have no patience with otherwise. Because if this is a cooperative game, you would no longer feel in control of your circumstances. In a cooperative game, it's fine that you're not in control of your circumstances. The randomness is fine because you're all in that randomness together, and you're trying to maximize your group ability to meet a common goal. So I guess that's a comment about cooperative games in general, not just the game. But I really do appreciate that element of it, and it's a good reminder to me, as I hopefully someday make a cooperative game, that it's okay to have completely random elements in it, as long as they give players interesting decisions to make as a group to fight against that randomness, as you see in many cooperative games. So I'd love to hear your, I guess, a few things in your opinion. I'd love to hear cooperative games that you enjoy that have random elements of it, like randomness that you actually really ends up adding to the game. And we've talked about that before. So more specifically for the game, or any other game you play, if there's ever an exception to a rule that really makes the game interesting and actually adds to the game, and why it does, because most exceptions to the rules don't do that. So I'd love to hear examples of that too. Thanks.